Well, the 16th summit of the non-aligned movement has ended here in Tehran on Friday, but Iranian officials are still engaged in an intensive schedule of bilateral meetings. Now, we're now joined by Mr. Asuman Kiengi, who is the Ugandan Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, to discuss the NAM meeting a bit more. Mr. Kiengi, thank you very much for joining us here on Press TV. We do appreciate you taking your time out to speak to us here. Firstly, I'd like to ask you, Mr. Kiengi, from an African viewpoint, how important was this NAM summit?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The NAM summit was a great event, not only for all the members of the non-aligned movement, but for Africa, because we know that the non-aligned movement played a very, very, very significant role in the independence struggles and movements on the African continent. And as a continent which is still struggling to get out of underdevelopment, poverty and disease and ignorance, we still need a lot of support and cooperation from all the non-aligned members in this direction. So it is a very monumental summit for us, and that's why the turnout from Africa was quite big.
Right, so Mr. Kiengi, I want to ask you about the specific issues that were spoken about at this summit. Things like, for example, disarmament, and of course Iran's nuclear energy program as well. What is your opinion on some of the things that were spoken about in, for example, the final declaration at the summit?
I think the final declaration was a compromise document which took into account all the views that were expressed during the summit. With respect to disarmament, of course, security is not only for a few people, it is for everybody. We believe that we should live in a peaceful world, free of nuclear weapons and weapons of mass destruction, and that people should live free from intimidation and threats from people who may think they are powerful and others are weak. They should be listened to, but they cannot listen to others. We should live in a society that is free, democratic, and equitable for all citizens of the world. And I think that declaration goes a long way in addressing that question. Of course, we subscribe to the view that it is a right of every country to have access to nuclear technology for peaceful purposes. The leader of the Islamic Republic of Iran said, we should have access to nuclear technology for peaceful purposes, but we do not subscribe to the view of having nuclear weapons or using nuclear weapons by anybody. Those who have them should destroy them, and no others should acquire them.
Right. And I also wanted to ask, about, especially in this past year or so, obviously North Africa especially has seen a lot of changes, some revolutions, etc. What is your opinion on the holding of such summits with new leaders such as Mr. Mohamed Morsi, of course, of Egypt, who was the first time that he was visiting Iran, especially after the Islamic Revolution of Iran as well? How do you see his visit in that context of the North African revolutions, etc.?
Well, it was a very good thing, because there are quite a number of fears when the Muslim Brotherhood took power in Egypt. There are fears about fundamentalism, fears about extremism. But of course, the world is a global village. We can influence each other. We can engage. So the appearance of President Morsi Mohammed here, his articulation of his vision for Egypt and the region was quite refreshing. Some of the fears which people have had about his government are gradually being removed. So I think it was a very welcome thing that we had leaders from Northern Africa leaders who have participated in the changes in the Arab world, attending here, listening just out, and we listen to them. I think we have constructively engaged each other.
Mr. King, you know, one of the things, a lot of criticism is put towards NAM, saying that, you know, it hasn't been able to achieve many of its stated goals in the past. Do you believe that going forward that will change, that NAM will be able to influence the world and the global events more than it has in the past, maybe?
I think the important thing is a commitment on both the leadership and also the member countries. Of course, it's shameful to sit in a meeting for 2 days, you deliberate, take decisions, and after that you just forget all about them. But I think it has also to do with the follow-up mechanism. I'm happy that this summit designed a plan of action. There are specific areas which Iran, as the chair of NAM, is supposed to follow up, and concrete action points have been, you know, agreed and even adopted. So it makes the work easy for the chair of Iran to follow up. I'm sure this time round, Iran would be active in mobilizing members to be reminded about what was agreed and to follow up, even in international fora. Because I wouldn't like to hear or go to the UN and then you find members of NAM voting against positions we have agreed here. We should follow up, Iran should be active, and all of us members, we should remind each other that we belong to a community, a very important community and organization. We should respect the decisions we took in Tehran.
And speaking about Iran, sir, you know, I wanted to ask, there was obviously a volley of voices before the NAM summit began from the United States, Israel, etc., pressuring countries not to attend this NAM summit. I'm not sure if Uganda experienced the same pressure or not, but what is your opinion on such pressure? Does it show, in a sense, a certain amount of fear on their part?
Well, I think the most important thing is to realize that countries, independent countries, are equal. Nobody can pressurize an independent sovereign state to take a particular position which is not in its interest. And I think that position was clearly reaffirmed by the attendance of a very big number of countries which turned up. Of course, we had those type of fears expressed by different circles that coming to Tehran be an endorsement of all that Tehran is doing and, you know, endorsement of terrorism, as it were. But of course, we know better. We have better information. We know there are things we agree with Iran, and there are so many issues that are of mutual interest between us and Iran. We don't have to agree on everything, but we agree on many important things that are beneficial to our people, and we are taking that up. So we came here on that understanding, and we cannot be pressurized into attending if we don't want to.
Right, you know, lastly, sir, I want to ask you, do you believe that this summit was a successful NAM summit, and why do you think that?
I think this was a very successful summit. To begin with, Iran has never organized a summit of this magnitude. And of course, the circumstances under which Iran is are quite difficult. The fact that a number of world leaders, including my president, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, turned up here, I think the mere attendance itself was a big success. We do pray that the decisions which have been taken will be followed up, and there are quite important decisions for world peace and global governance. So in a way, the success of this summit will be evaluated in the manner through which we follow up the decisions we took. But as of now, it was a big success, I think.
All right, well, we will have to leave it there for now, but we do appreciate you taking your time to speak to us. That was Mr. Asuman Kiyingi, the Ugandan Minister of State for Foreign Affairs. Again, sir, we do appreciate you taking your time to speak to us.
Thank you so much, and I congratulate Press TV for being the voice of the voiceless.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Welcome.